gonna be a different year. This is not the place for fear. I've got a job to do.
Well, hello everyone. Today we're going to be reading Chapter 6 of Freak the Mighty. I actually already recorded my reading of Chapter 6 with Block 1 students, but unfortunately there was some kind of glitch with the recording, and I lost the first couple pages. So I'm going to take a second now to read the beginning of Chapter 6 out loud. You guys can please, follow along. And then when I get up to page 31, we'll rejoin the class for the full discussion about Chapter 6. So here we go. You guys should be with me. I am on page 28. Today we're going to be reading Chapter 6, Close Encounter of the Turd Kind. And the events of Chapter 6 pick up right after Max goes to Kevin's house. They have dinner with the fair Gwen, and we see these guys just starting their friendship. So their friendship is brand new. And here we go. We're going to pick things up on the 4th of July. Chapter 6, Close Encounter of the Turd Kind. 4th of July, right? Everybody goes nuts. The dads are getting drunk and having their cookouts. And the moms are trying to keep all the brats from blowing their precious little pinkies off with cherry bombs. And the kids are running wild through the backyards. It's like no rules apply, and that makes everything real edgy, if you know what I mean. Like, let's have a blast, and who cares what happens. Now, don't get me wrong. I love the 4th. It's just that people tend to get all choked up about the firecracker holidays, and they don't see what's really going on. Which, like I say, is the dads swilling beer and acting numb. That's the basic formula. Not that Grim ever swills anything stronger than root beer. No way. The poison never crossed his lips, he likes to say. Even though I've seen a picture of him in the army, and that sure looks like a bottle of beer in his hand. And he's got that same whacked by a hammer grin that dudes always get when they're drinking. Anyhow, this is the first year I get to go to the fireworks without Grim and Graham, which I've never understood because it's right down by the mill pond where I've been allowed to go for years. So why should it make a difference just because about 1 million people show up to watch the rockets' red glare over that smelly pond? The deal this year is that I get to go with Freak, which Graham thinks is a good idea because she's afraid he'll get crushed or something. She actually thinks people are going to step on him, which just goes to show how brainless she can be sometimes, and scared of everything. I mean, nobody steps on little kids down there, so why should they step on Freak? Turns out the thing to worry about is not kid stompers, but beer swillers, like I mentioned before. Because Freak and I are still a couple of blocks from the pond, just kind of easing our way along, when these punks start mouthing off. Hey, you, Mutt and Jeff, Frankenstein and Igor. Don't look around, I'm talking to you boneheads. What is this, a freak show? I know that voice. It's Tony D. They call him Blade. He's at least 17, and he's already been to juvie court 3 or 4 times. I heard he cut a guy with a razor, and he almost died. And everybody says the best way to handle Tony D and his gang is you avoid them. Cross the street, hide, whatever it takes. Yeah, you, he goes. And he's doing this hippity walk, strutting along. He's got these fancy, cool cowboy boots with metal toes. Yeah, Andre the Giant and the Dwarf. Hold on a second. I want a word with you. Only, the way he talks, he goes, I want a word with you. Except, it's bad enough having to listen to the creep. I don't want to have to spell the dumb way he talks. Anyhow, big mistake. We stop and wait for Tony D, alias Bad News Blade. You got any dudes? He asks, pretending like he's friendly. He's a couple feet away, but you can smell the beer on his breath. And it smells like he ate something dead. For instance, roadkill. But maybe that's just my imagination. Pay attention, Tony D says. Freak, his chest is all puffed up, and his chin looks hard, and he's looking right up at Tony D, and he says, got any what? Tony D has his hands on his hips, and his punkster pals are trying to get closer, working through the crowd. He leans over Freak, and he says, boomers, you little freak. M80s, maybe a wreck of cherry bombs. Is that what's making a lump in your pocket, huh? Freak starts to hump himself away, trying to walk faster than he really can, which makes his leg brace bump against the ground. Come along, Maxwell, he says over his shoulder. Ignore the cretin. Blade goes, hey, what? And he moves right in front of Freak. You want to say that again, little freak man? Freak says, cretin. C-R-E-T-I-N. Defined as one who suffers from mental deficiency. Hearing how little tiny Freak is dissing the fearsome Tony D, alias Blade, I can't help it. I laugh out loud. Tony D is looking up at me, and he's showing his white teeth. I swear they've been sharpened to look like vampire teeth. And I go, uh-oh, and start to get real cold inside. Real icy, because I can see that Blade is trying to make up his mind. Is he going to fight me, or is he just going to kill me quick? Just then, I hear the whoop of a siren. And like a miracle, this cop car comes out of nowhere, heading for the mill pond. And Blade takes one look, and he and his punksters are out of there, burning rubber in their Reeboks. And unfortunately, guys, this is the part of the video that got cut off. We spent a lot of time in class today talking about the first conflict that Max and Kevin experienced down at the mill pond on the 4th of July, being that conflict with Tony D. And conflict is one of the new literary elements that we're just bringing into the story now. Okay, so now you guys can join me live in class for the rest of the video, and you can hear the discussions that we have about the rest of the chapter. This conflict a little bit. Sophia?
The conflict is between Tony D and his gang and Kevin and Max.
Okay, why? What's the conflict about? Who started the conflict, by the way?
Tony D and
Okay.
his gang.
All right.
He was like saying, he wasn't saying proper grammar, and he was like, you got any? And they were like, and Max and Kevin were like, you got any what?
So what's he doing? He's kind of bullying them, instigating them, about what? What does he want from them? Fireworks. Yeah, he's kind of bullying them. It'd be no different if a bully came up to you and like was trying to bully your lunch money out of you or something. He's trying to bully fireworks out of these guys on the 4th of July. Okay. You have to raise your hand. You have to raise your hand. Yes, Parker? Okay. I can't say if that's a good decision or not. I usually would tell everybody fighting is a last resort.
So, the conflict, is the conflict about the fireworks pretty much?
No, we're seeing this conflict unfold right here. The conflict is between Tony D and his gang, and they're, as we said, they're bullying Max and Kevin. And is he going to beat me up right now, or is he going to beat me up later? Because what does Kevin do? Kevin calls him... Guys, look in your book. Kevin calls him something. What does he call him? A cretin. And what's a cretin? Very good. He describes him as someone who suffers from mental deficiency. He calls him a cretin. All right, a name, basically calling him a dummy. All right, you suffer from mental deficiency, meaning you don't have enough mind power up there. And so cretin insults him. All right, and so now they're in this point where Max and Kevin might get up by Tony D. Blade. We also know Tony D. is a pretty bad dude. How do we know that he's a pretty bad dude? Michelle, because you raised your hand. Okay. Back on 29, though, they give us a very specific detail, which lets us know about how bad this dude really is.
You went to juvie 4 times?
Juvie court, 3 to 4 times. What does juvie court mean? So he's He's not just getting in trouble with teachers. He's getting in trouble with the law. He's getting in trouble with the law. You guys can put your hands down. So, again, it's more than I just got into some trouble at school. I'm getting into trouble with the law.
And he also said he cut a guy with a razor and he almost died.
Okay, so let's keep reading now. So we're in the middle of this conflict here. I'm on the middle of page 31. Just then, I hear the whoop of a siren. And like a miracle, this cop car comes out of nowhere, heading for the mill pond. And Blade takes one look, and he and his punksters are out of there, burning rubber in their Reeboks. Freak goes, phew, that's the kind. And it takes me a second to get the joke. But then I'm laughing, amazed he could be so cool about it. Like it was no big deal that Tony D was after us. You could take him, right? He asks a couple of minutes later. I go, are you kidding? You can't just fight Blade. You mean you couldn't take him? And I was giving him lip? Page 32. That's about the size of it. Freak goes, oh my God! And he's shrieking and laughing and whooping it up so loud that everybody is looking at us like we're total goons, which isn't far from the truth. Freak hasn't got his crutch tonight, just the leg brace, and he's laughing so hard he falls down. Not that he has far to go. Anyhow, I pick him up, and I'm amazed how light he is. Like it's nothing for me to lift him. And maybe that's where I get the idea. Because later, when we're down by the pond and the first of the rockets is streaking up, 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 Freak is making a fuss because he can't see. There are so many people crowded around. All he can see are feet and knees. And people are lifting their little kids up to see their fireworks explode like hot pink flowers in the sky. And so I just sort of reach down without thinking, and I pick up Freak and set him on my shoulders. He's kind of trembly up there until he grabs hold of my hair to steady himself. And then the first really big rocket whams off. A humongous thud in my stomach, and Freak is shouting, all right! And I know it's okay. He's not flipped out because I picked him up and put him on my shoulders like he was a little kid instead of the smartest human being in the whole wide world. Magnesium! He shouts as the white sparkles glitter down over the pond. As the shells go, whomp, whomp, whomp. And everybody goes, ooh. Potato. And after a burst of hot red fire in the sky, Freak and when the fire blossoms are flashing blue, he goes, strontium nitrate. And I'm thinking, whoa, is that doesn't know. Explain, what is Freak doing during the fireworks? Who can explain that? Parker?
He's saying what they're made of.
What do you mean what they are made of?
Like the fireworks.
Okay, so Freak knows what chemicals are in the fireworks to make them look the way that they look. Yeah, it's really smart. So, guys, things about the characters of Max and Kevin between this encounter and right now. So before what do you know about Max? What do you know about Kevin? I'm willing to bet you guys haven't written much down yet.
I don't think
So right now, take a second. Write something down. What does Max do? What's Kevin do? What do you know about these guys? Kindness. Alright? Right. We could put Kevin calls Tony D a cretin under plot. That is an event. It's also part of describing the conflict. And it's also helping us understand the character. So I want you guys to understand that about when we're talking about these literary elements, this action of like Kevin calling Tony D a cretin. It and it helps us understand the conflict. All right? Okay. End of the chapter. At the end, like always, they have a thing called the grand finale, when they just go nuts and light off everything at once. And it sounds like World War III, whizzing and banging and popping. And there's so much hot stuff falling from the sky. You can hear it sizzling in the pipe. Freak keeps on shouting out the names of chemicals and elements until the last spark dies in that scummy pond, and the crowd cheers. And then everybody tries to leave at once, like a bunch of morons. Okay, end of chapter 6. We have one more thing we need to do before we take our quiz, and that's this. We have to think about this chapter. And we need to, it's almost like we're giving it a new title as well, all right? We need the one you guys to do on the back of your graphic organizer. On the back of your graphic organizer. All right, you guys back of your graphic organizer. I want each one of you to try to write on your own the one-sentence summary. So think about this chapter. Look at the examples that we've written down, Cheyenne, for each chapter. All right. Write a one-sentence summary for chapter 6. I'm going to give you guys 2 minutes. 2 minutes to write your one-sentence summary. Does somebody in the virtual world, you guys want to start us off? We can all hear you. What would you write down for the one-sentence summary? Raise your hand and I'll know you want to share. All right, Marina, what would you say for the one-sentence summary?
I think the summary is that Kevin will stand up for Max, and Max will help Kevin choose it.
Okay, that's something really important that we definitely learn in this chapter. Anyone else virtually? How about people here in class? John?
Max goes to fireworks.
Okay, very well said. Again, you focus on exactly who are the characters, Max and Kevin. What do? They went to the fireworks and got into a conflict. That's what this whole chapter kind of is about. Michelle, you want me to come back to you? You look like you're still thinking. Sophia?
Max and Kevin, they go to the fireworks alone without any parents.
Okay. Don't worry about all those details. Max and Kevin go to the fireworks alone.
And Tony D goes Max and Kevin is brave and stands up for Tony D.
Okay. I think you have a lot of additional details that are going to be on the other side of your graphic organizer, but you definitely understand the chapter. How about you, Cheyenne? Okay, I would add with who. All right, if I need to just remember this chapter, I think most of you guys got this idea that Max and Kevin go to the fireworks on the 4th and have I'm going to call it a run-in. A fun-in. Have a run-in with Tony D. Let's leave it like that. All right, so there we go. We're up to chapter 6. So now our guys, their friendship, and you brought it up in important detail, it's kind of, we see Kevin standing up to Tony D on Max's behalf. All right, and so we see how these guys are starting to have each other's, yeah, you guys know what that phrase means, right? If you have each other's back. Okay. Gents, it is your time to tell me that you understand the chapter, that you guys can take the comprehension quiz. So, right now, on Google Classroom, you guys need to click on the Freak the Mighty Chapter 6 quiz. I can see 17 people have already turned it in. Now, each one of you, click on the quiz. I want to do one last thing with you before I release you guys to take the quiz. I got one more thing, and then I'm going to let you guys take the quiz. First, don't forget your first and last name, and let's look at the last question. Let's look at it. You're in luck. A short answer question is this. If you were Max or Kevin, how would you deal with Tony D and his gang? Explain in a short paragraph. All right? So, you guys are asked to write a short paragraph. And I made this one specifically asking you about your opinion, just to get you guys writing. Okay? So Cheyenne, you know what happened with Tony D. Michelle, you know what happened with Tony D. So the question is simply, how would you guys deal with Tony D and his gang? All right? So you're going to take the quiz, answer each question to the best of your ability. Make sure that you guys write out a paragraph right here. When you are done, I have the back due work for math, and your other classes have it.